Welcome everyone to the Freddie and Alyssa Show. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, like, comment, all that fun YouTube stuff. If you're watching on Facebook and you want to follow the page, that would be awesome. And if you're listening on a platform like iTunes, hello out there. If you want to leave us a 5-star review because you think we deserve it, that would be amazing. We've been putting up content now for almost 4 years, and we get to do what we love because of all of your support. So thank you so much. Quick little announcement, we decided to hop back on Cameo. We were unbookable for a little while there during crazy life transitions, and we decided to get back on Cameo. So if you'd like a shout-out video for a birthday or special occasion, you can find that description in the link, and just let us know if you want one from myself or Alyssa or all three of us, whatever you would like. So that is available now. Well, do you want to hop into the Q&A here?
Let's hop into the Q&A. I think you're the one who has all of the questions.
We have some here, and then I also remembered a few. So we can start off with, I'm trying to decide on whether to, let's start off with the big question, because I actually think I might end up titling the episode that, because I think people are going to want to know. The big question is, will you ever come back to days, or if you were asked, would you come back, or when are you returning? And I've been obviously getting that question since February of 2020 when we were released from the show to rest the characters. And that was kind of the big question in everyone's head is like, you know, well, when are you coming back? Is it a short time? Would you come back? Like, what's going on? And for me, I kind of started the process because it came out of left field initially.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I had always thought that there'd be a conversation of like, hey, do you want to, sign for another year, and this is probably going to be your last year, or we're going to rest your character, or that I would say it.
Right.
Where I would say, look, like, I want to let you know out of respect, like, I'm going to do one last year, so if there's any storyline or anything, I just want to give you a heads up in advance.
Yeah.
Rather than wait till 4 weeks before the contract and then say, never mind. But then for whatever reason, it happened so quickly. So it was kind of like, I kind of landed in the sense of like, well, what am I going to do here? Because this is probably temporary. Every character, even if the character dies, comes back at some point. So for the first 3 to 4 weeks, I was just kind of getting my bearings, and we were kind of deciding, well, what now? Because I'm pretty sure they're going to call back the characters at some point, call me back at some point. But, waiting around's not healthy. But then 3 weeks later, the pandemic happened.
Crazy.
So I was only really off the show for 3 to 4, maybe 5 weeks. I don't remember the timeline exactly, but then the whole world shut down. And then the question became, well, when is the industry coming back? Let alone when, if and when would the characters come back? And Alyssa and I, which I've shared many times, but if you're coming to the channel for the first time or just hearing this for the first time, if they would have offered me a contract and there was no pandemic and they offered me a contract in February of 2020, I would have said yes for 1 more year, and I would have let them know, like, hey, I'm going to do 1 more year, but this is going to be it for me. The reason I would have done just 1 more year was Alyssa and I wanted to get married. We are thinking about starting our family, and we wanted to be closer to our family, and being in Los Angeles and trying to be an actor forever, and being away from the family while raising a kid, we had that discussion for many years where we were just trying to find a way to, like, when was the perfect time to leave, like, and to go to Florida. So that was always the plan. It just so happened to be cut a little short in the sense that I wasn't given that extra year, and then the pandemic happened. But here we were in the summer of 2020, not knowing what was going to happen, and living in California at the expensive rate that it is awesome when you have the freedom to live your life, which it seems like it's gotten way better, but then that's, the whole thing. But just in general, to sit in an apartment paying almost $3,000 a month to be in lockdown was painful. Because that's the reason you pay those high expenses, is to work a industry job like acting, which pays well, and that whole thing. So we go, you know what? This is the time. So I wanted to preface this whole conversation with, by this time, we would have been to Florida and we would have started this next chapter, whether I would have done another year or not or whatever. This was kind of in our mind. We would have been here spring of 2021, but we happened to be here earlier. So when I was off the show in February and we were trying to figure everything out, even though the pandemic kind of clouded the idea of anyone's future because you didn't know what was going to go on, I was wrestling with the idea of if they ever were to call, would I go back? And for 8 months, a year, actually, how long? Yeah, it's been, oh my God, for more than a year, I was being honest. Where people said, would you ever go back? My answer was kind of like, well, the door will always be open.
Right.
It's always open in Salem or, whatever it may be, because that was honest. I had not fully checked out to the idea of going back if asked. But I would say around this past spring, I really started to have to make decisions of really letting that go in order to fully focus on moving forward in my life. And I kind of made that decision. So if you've noticed when following me, anytime I was asked anything about days, because I didn't feel honest saying, well, the door's always open and giving false hope, I just kind of didn't answer the question. But I go live, I make content, we're on the podcast, there's so many things going on that it's hard to dodge that question all the time. And I figured, with this Q&A, it got asked like so much, so maybe I should speak to that. But a couple months ago, I did make the decision for ourselves, our futures and everything, that if days were ever to call, I know this is going to be disappointing to so many of you, but I would not go back. And that decision didn't come lightly, and it didn't come overnight. I genuinely thought about that because I knew with the soap opera world that a day probably would come. Sure. Not necessarily, but probably if you look at the statistics. So it wasn't a rarity where I go, oh, I'm done and this never happened. So I really put a lot of thought into it. And a few months ago, I really had to make that decision. We had a long conversation. I said, if they ever were to call, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to go back. I need to focus on my future. And I think the problem that I was having was having one foot in the future and one foot in the past wasn't allowing me to give my 100% to my future. And I've used this analogy a million times, but it's that story of that war that took place on a beach. And the soldiers got off their boats and they were completely overwhelmed and outnumbered. And the general burned their ships so that they knew there was no retreat. And what that caused in those soldiers was, I don't have anywhere to go. I don't have my boat to get back on. I must fight to win, and I have to forge forward. I have no other option. And I needed to make that decision for my future because always in the back of your head, if you take out the impact that the story made, the wonderful experiences and friends and all of that, and you look at it as a strict career, job, financial decision, it's not healthy to try to build something and take on these great ventures and challenges that we're taking on. Yeah. Within the back of your head going, well, I mean, if it doesn't work, I'm sure they'll call one day.
Right.
Like, I'm sure. That is unhealthy. That means my ships are still there. And I just finally gathered the courage to tell myself that if that day ever comes, I have to say no. I have to move forward because I just can't keep going back and forth. It's sending mixed signals, I feel, for my energy and for my future and to the universe that I'm like, I had to make the decision. So I kind of made that decision in my head, and then I started making decisions in our career and our opportunities and different things, just different because I go, this is it. I have to make this work. So,
and also too, just to quickly speak on the end of that, is we tried in 2016 as well to have a residence in Florida and then also Los Angeles, and for him to go back and forth because I had to be in Florida for work at the time. And even trying to do that in it was 4 weeks we tried it. It was just too much on both of us, and we had to be separate. So us building a life here in Florida, and even for me, now this is where my work is, and I can't really just I can leave, but we're building a life here, and then eventually when we have a family, and I think something like you having a job in California and going back and forth, that's going to be just so taxing on us as a family, just on your body, on everything. And then also with all the other work we're pursuing as well, it just takes that attention away from it. So there's so many different reasons. You know, he obviously beautifully stated how he was feeling about it. But, you know, from the significant other's perspective too, we don't really love being away from each other. That's a lot. It's a long way to travel and, you know, different time zones. And it just would be really, really tough if that were ever an option or if you're presented with that. So I think from my end too, it's just really helpful and nice to know that we're both, you know, in this together, and we're not going to be living separate lives when we're starting, you know, a new life here in Florida. So just a little bit of my 2 cents, I guess.
Yeah, and it's also too, you know, it's a it's a difficult thing because there's really no one to go to for advice on this particular situation, because I'm in a unique situation that when you're on television and you get a sense of micro fame, there's such an energy that is through everyone you meet, is through everyone on social media that knows you from the show, and or if you're introduced in real life. There's an energy that pulls you towards that character, that career, and you don't realize until you're on this end of it what 1,000 voices on social media feels like. And I think even some of the big creators, we don't even know what 1,000 like haters feels like.
Right.
When there's like you know, you can have 1 million followers, or you can be the Rock, but even if you think of yourselves making any big life decision and there's 1,000 people in an audience, let alone 500,000 people, but 1,000 people in an auditorium that's looking at you, and you're on stage telling them something that's going to disappoint all 1,000 of them because they love you, they support you, you've made a difference in their life. And to stand up there and to have this conversation actually isn't that easy, because I'm empathetic to how people feel. But at the same time, I have to rip the Band-Aid off eventually, because I need to allow that to happen for people to accept that and or not to. But it's just very difficult. Like telling all my friends, telling my family, like truly making that decision. Because I had a lot of friends and family that would ask me. Like there's, you know, and that's what's interesting is when you're in a profile job like that, people are really curious. So no matter who we meet or what we do, every question is like, well, would you ever go back? Or what are you doing now? Like, I had an interesting job and I appreciate that. But you're getting asked it all the time. So you're always thinking about, how would I answer this? What's the answer to that? And because the job is looked at as like unique or cool or different, you almost feel a little guilt or bad saying that you no longer want to pursue that.
But you also don't live there anymore. If you lived in California and you had this answer, that's a little different, you know. Or I mean, different actors have different kind of, you know, careers they're pursuing. But I'm just saying it would be different if you were in that world.
I mean, maybe not though, because if I was still there and was like, hey, I decided not to move forward, I just want to do movies now, that would kind of be the same thing.
Sure. But still a little different. Like if you were actively pursuing a career, I feel like it would be harder to say no, maybe?
I don't know. We're not in that situation, so it's already such a heavy-weighted thing, just in general.
So do you think in the future you'd ever want to act again?
I do, but not in the traditional sense. You know, now that could change, but the idea of ever putting auditions on tape, living in LA again, like, to me, that is done. Mm-hmm. Will we write and sell a film or act in short films or do something in TV, whether it's, you know, shorts or reality, or grow the social media channel to something where we can do big budget things on social, whether it's acting or hosting or something like that. I see that. But for me to get an audition, get into character, and do that traditional thing, I just deep down personally, which is even hard to say out loud, I've just lost interest in that. I think that I got to do more scenes than probably the top 5% of anyone who's ever acted.
Yep.
I have probably, Wally Kurtz said this to me once when we were talking. We have filmed more scenes that have been released to national television, to the public, than probably Robert De Niro or any of these famous actors. Like, they have not filmed as many scenes as we have. So I just feel like I went there, I had 500 auditions, I got that experience, I've played many different characters, and I got to grow with this character, Sonny, for 9 years, 800 some episodes, probably 4,000 or 5,000 scenes, memorizing, crying, laughing, love, fear, anger. And I just feel like I went to LA, I accomplished something I'm so proud of that is extremely difficult to do.
Yeah.
I don't take it for granted, especially now that I'm older. I definitely don't take the Emmy for granted, considering how hard it has been for 5 years to even get a nom. So I have now, in retrospect, have a great appreciation for my work being recognized in that way. I will always be a Emmy winner. I will always be Sonny Kiriakis, who filmed 800 and some episodes on Days of Our Lives.
Yeah.
And I just feel I really accomplished something great. I met great people in Hollywood. I met my wife. I grew up as a person. I became so much more knowledgeable and wise. I went through trials and tribulations, through challenges. I had so many successes, so many failures, so many victories, and overall a ton of learning experiences. And I feel that now I'm in Florida. This is a complete, fresh new start for me in career, in life, in geography, where I'm at. I was in Ohio till I was 18 years old. 3 weeks after high school, I moved to LA. So I never lived in Ohio as an adult. I never had to work, pay bills, and support myself in Ohio. I was just in high school, like living the dream as a kid would. And then I grew up for 15 years in Hollywood, and that's all I knew.
Yeah.
Every store, every person you meet was all in Hollywood. And I'm really enjoying exploring the world and exploring a new place where the heartbeat of the city is not acting, music, etc. It's a different vibe.
Yeah.
And I'm just excited to be in this pulse and just seeing a different way of life that doesn't revolve around Hollywood. And I'm thoroughly enjoying it. And it's just different. Like, you almost, when people say, do you miss California or do you like Florida better? It's kind of like a question that can't really be answered. It's
right.
Kind of like California is awesome and Florida is awesome. They each have their pros and cons, especially for the time of my life. Like, now, this is the time to be here in Florida, next to family, and this is where I'm at. So I look back at it, but to wrap up, even like some of the acting stuff too, I do think we'll do some sort of acting in the future, but I think it's going to be in a new way. I think it's going to be through YouTube and Facebook. I think it's going to be through us selling a script and acting in it or something like that. But the whole traditional way for me, that process, I no longer enjoy. And the entire point of life is to find something that you enjoy the process of. Definitely. On your way to hitting a goal. And living in LA, auditioning 2-3 times a week for different roles in the hopes of booking something big or a character that I love. I would not look forward to that process. So I had to come to terms with that. I'm kind of glad that I waited a year. Yeah. Because I was flushing all this out. We were also going through a pandemic, which everybody was like, everything kind of got, twisted around. But I'm very, very in tune with my truths, with what I want, where I'm at. And I'm very aware of the work we did as an audience and as Sonny with Wilson in the storyline. That was a bonus. I understood there was going to be challenges, but I didn't realize it was going to be so impactful. So I'm going to look back at Days as a wonderful, wonderful experience in my life, a huge chapter. every big life event in my 20s was also linked in with days.
Yeah.
Many days in the makeup chair, the stories that the makeup artist knew, because you come in, you're like, so last night, or hey, this is going on in my life. And but that's how I kind of want to remember this, and that's what I know it's going to take people who are disappointed in this news. But I know that you'll also be able to kind of let that sink in of like appreciating, which I know you do, what we did. And I'm just trying to just like turn you away from the disappointment aspect of it.
And I think too, life is all about growth. It's all about progression. And us being in our 30s, we have seen what it's like having big dreams and goals in your 20s, and then, you know, some you accomplish, some you don't, but you're allowed to have new dreams, new visions. It's a sign that you're growing, that you're continuing to follow your heart, to do at the end of the day what makes you happy, because in life you just have to find whatever sets your soul on fire and do it, and that can change.
Yeah.
You know, that's showing that you're living life, that you're progressing, that you're going after it, that you're stepping out of your comfort zone. So I'm just really, really proud of you, because I know this has been a huge chapter in your life. And there are going to be so many other chapters and really cool things that you're going to be doing in life. And that was just a really cool, awesome thing to experience and for you to be able to have, you know, in your life.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
No, well, thank you. And I think that's what I learned about myself, is how I'm built. I think whether it was days, whether it would have been a CW show, a movie series, if I would have gotten into, you know, public relations, I don't know what else I would have done.
Yeah.
I have found what makes me happy in life is the progression of starting at the bottom and working your way through the top of a challenge and learning experience is where my true happiness comes from. And I think as much, and I will tell you this, I am so grateful for the last year I had on days, because if I would have gotten let go before the Will in jail and Adrian dying story, I feel I would have left some stuff on the table. I got to act and that was,
share your talent.
And that's out there forever. It is so hard to do that kind of acting. And I'm just like blown away that I was able to pull that off. But to like cry and to be emotional and to be angry and to be torn and to all that kind of stuff, like I really feel like I gave my 100%. And I just feel if I went back, yes, we could tell more great stories, but I just feel like I literally gave my 100% and I accomplished what I set out to do there. And now I'm on to like something new. And for those of you who've been following us, you know I kind of jump around. I kind of go, oh, this is a good idea, or this is a good. But then we've stuck with things like podcasting for a long time, stuck with days for a long time. There are things, but I always like tasting. And there's certain aspects of different projects we're working on now that are just getting me excited. And
hey, if you need your Freddie fix, come on in, sit down, have a cup of coffee, watch our podcast. We're here every Wednesday.
That's the other bonus too. If this was 1992, I would have just been like a ghost.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is that there is social media, so you can keep up on us in our personal lives if that's what you like doing.
You've been blowing up on social media lately, babe. This is like a TikTok star I live with. My husband's a TikToker.
And I don't even dance. So, but yeah, so we're going to continue to evolve and continue to grow and continue to keep you up to date with everything. But I couldn't continue to ignore these messages, and I couldn't in good heart, I couldn't in good faith just blow off the question with, hey, maybe we'll be back one day, knowing that I've already mentally made the decision that I wouldn't.
Right.
And it took me a few months to figure out, well, when's the right time to be able to break the news. And moving forward, I know every Days of Our Lives fan's not going to see this. So the question will probably come up a lot. And I'm going to do my best to maybe answer it every so often. But I actually feel better even saying, even though there's no live audience right now, I can like imagine people watching it. But it was hard. It was hard. Like every discussion, even when I told my parents, I was like, hey, you know, I just want, because my mom even asked me before. She's like, hey, if they ever called, would you go back? And I was always like, oh, I don't know. And then I remember just telling her one day, I was like, you know, when she asked me, I was like, I actually wouldn't. I actually wouldn't. And like just telling everybody, because even my parents think it's awesome. Like their son's on a national television show, and they're like, cool. This is like so, But to me too, it's always weird because I never felt any different. Like to me, it was always just like a really cool job, sure. But I never let it like get to me in like a Hollywood way. So to me, I was just like, my alarm goes off, I go to work, you say hi to people, you're polite, you're professional, you do your job, you go home. But I'm aware that it made an impact. I'm aware that family and friends and all the fans around the world really thought it was awesome and really enjoyed it.
Beautiful
and
story.
I just want to just thank you, and I'm sorry if you're a little sad, but I just had to be honest and truthful, and that's what we do here on the podcast. And I'm glad I have a platform where I had the ability to actually talk this out, because yet again, just in a tweet, I don't know if you can create the emotional journey.
Well, I'm proud of you for opening your heart and speaking your truths. Love you so much.
And that's all we can do these days, just be authentic and open. And I feel like I just tried to be as honest as possible. So I just thank you for everything, and I just wanted to kick it off by answering that question.
Well, to pivot a little here with a little more lightheartedness, do you know what today is, Mr. Smith?
Today is Wednesday.
It is Wednesday. It would be July 21st.
Is it the day we got engaged?
Yes!
3 years ago, huh?
3 years ago.
3 years ago.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
3 years ago, you proposed.
Yeah.
Do you remember that day?
Oh, I remember it, yeah.
Were you nervous that day?
I was nervous only because we were trying to capture it on camera.
Right.
If it was just us, no. Huh. But I just didn't want to blow the surprise, so that was pretty difficult. But, yeah, time's flying.
Time is flying, and it's so crazy to think, too, throughout the 3 years, we were trying to figure out, when are we going to get married? What are we doing? At one point, we wanted to do, like, Mexico. Another point, we were doing, like, St. Augustine, Florida, and we had all these different things in life pop up that we were like, shoot, we can't do that. We can't do that. And then eventually, we eloped on New Year's Eve.
Yeah. Yeah, so, it was just all, it was just a wild
3 years.
Wild life.
And if you guys haven't seen it, the vlog is on YouTube somewhere.
Oh, of our proposal?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's out there, the wedding. But yeah, just thinking back to all that stuff, like we had some really cool moments, but like this is the first time in our life, like no joke, even the first 8 months in Florida, first 6 months were still like nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
Like about last month, ever since we got into this apartment, I have never felt a wave of like, you're okay.
Right.
Like I haven't felt like you're okay since early 2014. Like it has been the wildest,
went through a lot.
Like up and down 7 years, almost 8 years now, of just insanity. And
led a wild life.
Yeah, and it was funny because I was talking to your mom the other day. I went over to put a bookshelf together, and we were just sharing stories. And it's just bizarre how when you do a lot of things, you also forget a lot of things until they're brought back up.
Definitely.
But the experiences that mean something, whether it's extremely positive or extremely hurtful, stick with you.
Yep.
Kind of everything in the middle you kind of forget about. Yep. But all those things. But yeah, it really took a while to get here, and I'm just kind of soaking it all in. And I truly feel like now we're at a place where we can focus on what's next for our family. We can focus on our work 100%. And that was another question that we got too, about me getting my real estate license, because Alyssa has hers now, and you've had it now for a couple months. I think it's like on the board of something I might do, but we're kind of doing great with you doing it and me being able to help on the back end. But we also know that if I were to become one, now you have two sources that could potentially sign clients.
Absolutely.
Because there's still people who, maybe follow me and don't know Alyssa's a real estate agent, even though we are a family. But I don't know. I kind of like where I'm at duty-wise with the real estate business we have.
Duty-wise.
Duty-wise. So it's kind of, that might be something I do just slowly, just to have, but I'm not sure.
Never say never.
Yeah.
As Justin Bieber sings.
Never say never.
So let's get into some questions because he's the one who has all of them. I didn't post today. So it's all in your hands, baby.
A lot of them were about days, which I feel like I covered in acting. And then there was a few others that are really like cute and fun. And all the Florida questions I'm going to also kind of clump into one.
Sure.
Because a lot of people, I never realized how many people actually live in Florida, because I think we get so many messages of like, I think I saw you. Yeah. I feel like a lot of people have seen us, but when you're in a random place and maybe you don't know we live in Florida, people be like, wait a minute, what would they be doing here? But yeah, we're in like the Davenport, Reunion, Champions Gate area. What was that? Sounded like a gunshot. Oh, it was the backfire of a motorcycle. But yeah, that's kind of the area we're in. We're 15 minutes south of Disney, and it's a really, we just got lucky in this area because we never would have known about it. But when we got an Airbnb, that's the reason that we were here.
Yep.
We just found an Airbnb.
Complete luck.
For biggest bang for our buck, and we're like, this is great. Let's go there. And it's such a cool area. Her parents even bought here. What'd your sister say about moving here to Winter Garden?
She's totally down.
What was her top choices?
She's open. So her husband's coming down in a couple weeks because she's pregnant. She's very, very pregnant. So he's going to look at the areas, and they obviously want a place that has great schools. She wants a very family-oriented type community, obviously safe. She doesn't want too cookie-cutter housing, because like even when we went to that one neighborhood, I sent her a video, she wants something just a little more with like personality
and character.
So yeah, I'm really thinking Winter Garden's going to be perfect for them, and it's not too far from us because I also don't want to go for the first time living near my sister in 15 years, and then we have to drive, an hour each way. Like I want my sissy close. So I think Winter Garden would be really great. Where we live, there is more like tourism, and I don't think that I know they don't want that. They want kind of, actual life, and I don't mind the tourism. I kind of love it. I love when I see people and everyone's happy because they're on vacation. It's cool.
You know what's hard though is everybody who's here has paused their responsibility, and you can feel the energy, which is heartwarming. The grocery stores, like everywhere you go, everyone's on vacation. Yeah. And you're like, this is great. But then you're also like working. So it's a Tuesday and you're just like stepping out for lunch, and there's people getting cases of beer, going to the water park. Like, oh. And you're like, I want to go on vacation. But we kind of have a cool balance with what we do, like with work-wise, even with real estate. It's kind of like you're never really like rigidly working in like a location that's very like at a desk in an office type rigidness, but we're never like fully unplugged or on vacation,
right?
Because we just kind of don't work that way,
right.
But we need to kind of get a little better at that. But we kind of are just always just kind of like working and then not, and then working and then not, kind of throughout the day.
Definitely.
Which is kind of a really cool experience. But there are times that I do love sitting down at my editing desk and really knocking out my editing. But interesting enough, I've been paying attention, just kind of interested in stuff. I don't know what part of that. I'm just like interested. I'm seeing all the time on TikTok where people, once they got a taste of working from home, people are like, I don't want to go back to the office. Yeah. I just don't. And that is one of my biggest pulls from what has genuinely been in me as a teen, is what drew me to acting wasn't necessarily what normal people who act do. They're like, right. I love playing characters. I love being on stage. I love singing. I love writing. I love doing plays and exploring and emotions. Mine was like, I don't want to work in an office. Yeah. So like, what can I do? And someone's like, well, acting, you kind of like work on a show and then you're off, and then you kind of travel here and shoot, then you're off. And I go, that sounds cool. Like, let me do that. And then once I started taking the classes, I started falling in love with the response of the audience, where I would tell a joke and they'd laugh. And I go, ooh.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Because I was never really like a stand-up comedy class clown kind of guy. So if you just met me in real life, like I'm not the type that's going to do like the stand-up comedy, but situationally, I'm funny. Mm-hmm. Or in a script or written thing, I'm funny.
Right.
So I never knew I was funny until I started acting, realizing, oh, this is the platform to do that.
But also your comedy has really come to fruition in your older age. Like, I feel like you found your voice. Like, you make me laugh so much.
Well, because it's the poor sap guy of like, when you just get older, things change.
Hey.
You get like a
Life
random
experience.
hair somewhere, and I'm like, what the hell is this? So you kind of get humbled as you get older. You know, I was like a cute kid at 19 years old, bright smile. So I was like, a lot of comedy doesn't come from like,
hey, life's just dandy.
Life's great. My first agency meeting in Hollywood, 3 weeks here, they signed me. Who's innovative? I don't know. When's my first audition? And everyone's like, Innovative's the top 5 biggest agencies in Hollywood, California. And then just all the auditions happened. So my first few years, I really kind of had a little bit of a lack of self-awareness until life challenges started coming. And then diminishing the ego, diminishing the invincibility, becoming humble, and then really learning from there, and then becoming self-aware, starting to care about other people's feelings. Then it kind of gave me like guidance in life, where now I'm just like, oh, just make things about other people. Like really care about others, listen to others, and just always be humble enough to learn. And we learned that in our business that we had in 2014, is there's so many people that become successful in a field, whether it's a chiropractor, a business, a teacher, whatever your field is. And you're kind of like it. You're the one people go to for questions. You've made it in your field. It takes a lot of humility to be the top dog and then start something new and be at the back of the room, not on the stage, not front and center. No one's talking to you. No one knows who you are. No one cares about you. And you're sitting down taking notes, learning from people. Yeah. And it wasn't easy, but I started getting addicted to that because I enjoyed the challenge. Mm-hmm. You know, like I enjoyed starting from scratch and being like, all right, how do I make a name for myself? Because you're underestimated at first. I always laugh when people are like, well, you know, will tell us things, like even in real estate. I'm just like, I'm always like, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We're going to crush this. We're going to so crush this. So I love the competition aspect. I love starting at the beginning, being underestimated, and then working to the top in that. I forget why we were even on that topic, but
I will say though, everything that I learned from working in that business in 2014 to 2017, it prepped me completely for the real estate biz. It's
people.
Yeah, it just was such a great experience, and it just really prepped me. So I'm super grateful.
And that's the whole thing in life. Like a good piece of advice is like, be nice, ask questions, and be willing to learn, and focus on how to manage your emotions. Mm-hmm. And that's where I'm at right now, where I'm like working so hard. If someone's rude to me in public, if something, I go, why are you getting angry, Freddie? What they're doing is none of your business.
Yep.
I've read so many quotes about this. I've been listening to so many like leaders about if someone can affect you emotionally, then they have control. Yeah. And it's like, so why am I getting angry? Why can't I make it about that person? And I'm working so hard, but it's starting to make sense and things are clicking. Yeah. It's just like, if this person's going to be super rude, or even like the other day we were in 7-Eleven and these 3 girls who had zero self-awareness or any care in the world that there was a line of 16 people behind them and they were buying lottery tickets, taking their good old time, being so rude, not looking back saying, I'm so sorry, but like completely as if it was just their world and no one else existed. And the old me would have said something. But I just realized like they're at a point in their life that they haven't had enough life experience or education to care about others first.
Sure.
They're just very selfish. but they're not choosing to be selfish. They're not me or you choosing that activity.
Right.
They are them who haven't had a life experience yet to give them our perspective.
Sure.
So anytime I get mad, I keep thinking, well, they should know what I know, and I would never do this, so they're being rude. It's like, no, I was that person at 21.
Oh,
the dumb shit that I would do, it was in, like, no one would believe me. I am so happy there wasn't social media.
Oh my gosh.
You all just happened to meet me.
Had a good time.
When I started taking social media like serious around 2016, 2017, because the tweets and all that little stuff was very corporate in the sense of like, oh, I was an actor on a show.
Yeah.
Twitter is what I should do. But I was doing it in the sense that I think a lot of people still do. But when I started understanding that the things I'm writing and saying is about the people consuming it and making it for the other people, definitely. I go, oh, but you all met me on social media in like 2016, where my journey of change started in 14. So you got kind of like the better part of me before I was this immature punk who was still a nice guy. I wasn't rude or mean, but just completely selfish.
He was too cool for school.
Was just too cool. Like, I was a gift. Like, anywhere I went into, everyone in there was lucky I was in there.
Oh, gosh.
And I just got my way. I didn't care. And then I had this reality shift, and I started reading books, and I started understanding. So you all met me at a good time. But I love that people like you, some of my best friends, there's just a lot of people who were like, I'm proud of who you are now because I knew you back then and we loved you. But you've definitely grown a lot.
You were always a really good person.
I was a good person, yes. But I was just selfish ways. And
now you're self-aware and
exactly
add value to other. Well, you added value in different ways because when you were walking in.
Yeah. So, but maybe we'll save some of the other questions for later because I feel like I don't know when we started, but I feel like we've gone for almost an hour.
Yeah.
So we'll do more Q&As. I kind of like that a seed of a question can spark something that we never would have thought of. So we'll keep some of these down, but I'll go to Instagram in a couple weeks and we'll do another one, and then we'll continue to fill you in on what's going on in our lives and what's next and all that good stuff. So we appreciate you stopping by and checking out this podcast, and we will see you next Wednesday.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.